how does your entrance to Team Canada come about?
Okay, such a good question, and I had to reflect and kind of remember why did I end up at 4 Olympics? And I ended up just starting at little competitions at Whistler that took me provincially, and those provincial contests took me nationally. I won junior nationals when I was younger, started competing in senior nationals, started traveling across the borders for snowboarding, and went to junior worlds and ended up on the podium at two of those. And I just have that competitive spirit. And remember in 2001, leading up to the Salt Lake Games in 2002, I was in Chile, and we were competing, and everyone was there. All the top snowboarders were there, even the snowboarders that are like top right now, like Travis Rice was there trying to compete to go to the Olympics. And I was probably about 16, and I was like, well, I want to compete against the best of the best, but it was a little late. It takes a full year to competing to qualify for the Olympics, and it's not an easy task. So I had about 5 years to get up the tricks to go to qualify for my first games for Canada in 2006 in Italy.
How long was snowboarding in the Olympics? Because there's various, like, you see people snowboarding like the halfpipe, which you do, and there's all these different kind of, levels of snowboarding and different kinds of things that people do. How long has it been in the Olympics? And then did you have to specifically pick what you were going to do, or was it one of those things where you get to? It's like public school. Well, Mercedes is the best at halfpipe, and this person's the best at this, and we're going to pick her over here. Or you go in with a very specific focus? To answer the first question, 98 was the first Olympic snowboarding was in, and the only disciplines that were in were halfpipe and racing. And I did grow up racing, but on a freestyle board, and that was fine at that level. I wasn't going to go to the Olympics for it. That wasn't my passion. But I really did fall in love with halfpipe, and there was a halfpipe on Blackcomb where that was the in thing in the late 90s to do, and I wanted to be in it learning tricks. So I made it to my first games in 2006, which is crazy. Now, there's a story which we'll get to about the Great Fall. But leading into those Olympics and trying to nail those tricks for anyone that's starting to snowboard for the first time, or all the rest of it, how many injuries did you get before you even got to where you needed to be? And that's because
countless.
I can't imagine. Okay, you're gonna do, name us a trick that's impossible that you're gonna have to do for the Olympics.
I mean, at my first Olympics, it was just like a 720 probably would have been the hard trick to do. And unfortunately at those games, fortunately I was hopeful for the finals at those games, but the way that the competition ran, I did my first run and I was in 9th, and they took the top 6 to the finals, and you get a second run and it's all or nothing. And I crashed in my second run. So that's why I ended up going again. I crashed, you crash, you get up, but when you're at the Olympics, you're pretty pissed off, and you kind of understand what it is to represent your country in that moment.
And is the 720 a daunting trick? Is it one of those things where I've got to do this or it's not going to happen? Like, it has to be, I have to stick it perfect, or it's not, I might as well just not even bother.
Kind of, if you want to actually make it to the finals at that time, again, this is a long time ago, now girls are doing 1080s, which is wild. I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. But you need to land your tricks or else you're out, and then you have another 4 years to wait to try and do it again.
So I want to come back to the 4 years. What kind of what's the dominating factor when you're training for the first time, when you think I've got a real shot to make the Olympic team? What's a regime in school like? Because you went to school in Whistler, right? And but it's hey, you're up at 5 a.m. like a hockey player, or what is that? What does that look like? How much of domination does it take over for you?
I mean, I wasn't at school very often, but it was really lucky in Whistler. We had a quarter system, so over the winter we could there was like kind of a ski program, and I was one of the first snowboarders to go through it, where you in the winters got to take math away with you, and if you did come back to school, there was a teacher there to help you if you had any issues. And that's kind of what helped shape me, because I wanted to finish my schoolwork. I had a task to do, but I also wanted to snowboard, and I was away, so it kind of gives you that, I guess you would call it work-life balance, work-school balance.
Is that common in places like Switzerland, Utah, or like Colorado? Like
There are a lot of snow sports schools
where it's
for
like,
sure.
hey, we know where this person's going, so you're going to get there that way, and then you're going to learn.
It's very, it's accommodating, and it works, but you have to want it, and you have to do the work.
Gotcha.
Or else you're not going to graduate.
Free, or does it cost?
That was public school.
That's public school.
Free.
So then coming back to the 4-year thing, so you do the thing, either you get on the team or you don't get on the team. Mm-hmm. So when I travel around,
that's the most pressure you have in your whole life, pretty much, is that year before the Olympics.
Is the year before.
When you're trying to qualify. Like I usually so I went 4 times, and that every year I was probably the underdog almost every time.
But then you made it.
Then I made it. And then 2010 happened.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
I was 6th in Canada, and I thought that would be my last Olympics, and I was done. And I saw Marnie McBean and Rick Hansen, and they said, well, how do you think you could do at the next Olympics? And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm just thinking in the moment, and I was really happy with that. They're like, you could probably do better. And so I was on the road again.
When you don't make, so an athlete that say doesn't make it, mm-hmm. or you're saying that there's this break where you got to wait 4 years in order to do it again. So when I go on tour, or when we go on tour, mm-hmm. Around the world, sometimes I'm out for 3 months, sometimes I'm just out for a month, or sometimes it can be, I know some guys are out for a year straight, and that adjustment back to regular life, you have to work on it all year. You have to get ready to go back to, being normal.
I know. I like to air asterisk that normal life.
Well, there's and it's welcomed, but then if you're addicted to traveling, or if you're addicted to making the Olympics, or if you're like anybody with any with any passion, once you get addicted to it, it can take over your world, and then you got to be careful about how you readjust to coming home. So let's say you don't make it, and you're saying it's 4 years before you got a chance to try it again.
Yeah.
Or let's say the Olympics happens, and then are you getting ready for the next winter in Italy, and the next winter in, like, there's always somewhere to go with it, or to focus. But if you really have to decide whether you want to keep going if you don't make it, or if you made it and didn't get the results you wanted.
The thing about the Olympics is, they are every 4 years, and it's kind of the thing that you might be driving towards, but there's another World Cup, there's another X Games, there's World Championships. So there's always another adventure that you're going on, and it's not the be-all and end-all if you don't make the Olympics. But that's just kind of in the back of your head. You're like, oh yeah, like this year, okay, kind of can take it mellow, but still, you're not going to take it mellow. You're a competitive athlete.
Totally. And so now Olympics are done, all the rest of it. You've retired, as they say in the
hate that.
The world.
I still snowboard.
But you still snowboard. I mean, you snowboard.
Just not competing in halfpipe anymore.
Right. Thanks for stopping by, friends, to the Brenton on Tour podcast channel on YouTube. Coffee, music, travel, life, all of those things. One page, lots of guests, lots of chatter. We talk about all of it. If you like it, subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Thanks, friends. See you next time.